I forced her to marry me by all means. After we got married, I fulfilled all her requests, and we didn't even sleep together. Even when she had an ambiguous relationship with her childhood sweetheart, William, I never asked about it. I also invested 10 million yuan to help William start a company. On William's birthday, she forgot to take the gift and asked me to deliver it. If you can't deliver it within half an hour, we'll get a divorce. On the way to deliver the gift, I died in a car accident. When I opened my eyes again, the phone rang. This time, I said, okay, let's get a divorce. When I opened my eyes again, I stared blankly around, as if I had just woken up from a long dream. The ringtone of the mobile phone suddenly pierced the silence. I looked down and saw that the caller ID was Ava. I hesitated for a moment and then answered the phone. On the other end of the phone, came Ava's familiar but cold voice. James, bring me the purple bag I left on the desk. Be at CUA restaurant within 30 minutes. If you're even a minute late, we'll get a divorce. When the words, get a divorce, reached my ears again, I finally came to my senses. I had been reborn back to the time before I died. Getting a divorce was a common trick Ava used, and I had always known that. James, just because you married me doesn't mean you'll ever have me. If you have the guts, get a divorce. You just have a bit of money, don't you? I don't care about it. If you have the guts, get a divorce. I look down on men like you the most. I didn't get married to you voluntarily. Every day, I've been looking forward to getting a divorce. That's right, Ava has always disdained me. She knew that I had used all means to marry her, so how could she get a divorce so easily? When Ava's younger brother was ill, she worked part-time while studying and took on jobs everywhere, but it still wasn't enough. She had no choice but to borrow money from loan sharks. When the creditor came to her door, she cried and said that she would work hard to pay it back. The creditor sneered. Looking at Ava's pretty appearance, he said, then go and sell yourself. You'll pay it back faster. As he spoke, he told his lackeys to drag Ava, who was on the ground. Ava struggled desperately but to no avail. When I saw that, I quickly ran up and offered to pay off all her debts for her. However, Ava didn't appreciate me. In her heart, this was just a means for me to force her. In fact, at that time, I had never thought of using it to blackmail her. Perhaps she couldn't stand that kind of life herself and came to make a deal with me. She put forward 3 conditions. First, treat her younger brother's illness and I need to pay all the expenses during the subsequent nursing process. Second, she and her childhood sweetheart William had opened a company and still needed 10 million yuan in principal, and I needed to pay the full amount. Third, after getting married, if she didn't want to, I couldn't force her to have a physical relationship. At that time, I agreed without even thinking. Now that I think about it, I was really stupid. I actually eagerly agreed to so many strange conditions. Seeing that I didn't speak, Ava on the other end of the phone was a bit angry, and her tone became sarcastic. James, do you hear me? Hurry up and bring it over, or we'll get a divorce. It was about getting a divorce again. Since she wanted a divorce so much, then I would grant her wish. Okay, let's get a divorce. After saying that, I hung up Ava's phone for the first time. On the other end of the phone, Ava held the phone tightly and shouted at the top of her voice, "What did you say?" But she only heard the beeping sound of the hung-up call. Ava looked at the phone in disbelief. After all, I never had the courage to hang up on her before. I would always wait for her to be satisfied with scolding me before she hung up. When William saw that Ava didn't look well, he quickly asked, "What's wrong?" Ava stabilized her emotions a bit and said, "It's nothing. I just don't know what's wrong with James. I asked him to bring the gift I left at home, but he actually directly insisted on getting a divorce." William immediately comforted her softly, "Yao Yao, I actually don't care about the gift. Having you with me today is the best gift." When Ava heard William say this, a blush flashed across her face, and she immediately forgot about me. After all, in her heart, I wouldn't dare to really get a divorce from her. I called Henry, "Bro, come out and have a drink." When Henry received the call, he was a bit surprised. "Don't you need to accompany your wife?" Everyone in the company knew that I would go home on time. I never participated in social gatherings at night, just to rush home and cook dinner for Ava. "Yeah, I don't need to," I replied. Hearing me say that, Henry didn't hesitate either. "I'm at the Dark Night Bar. Just come over directly. I'll wait for you." When I arrived at the Dark Night Bar, looking at the feasting and revelry, I suddenly realized that I hadn't been to such a place for a long time. Because Ava didn't like it, after getting married, I rarely went out with my brothers. I easily found Henry. That night, I drank a lot of wine. All the pent-up emotions from my previous life were released at this moment. The alcohol didn't numb me. Instead, it made me more sober. Only after dying once can you understand that some people and some things can't be obtained by sacrificing your dignity. When we were both too drunk to stand properly, we helped each other out of the bar. In a trance, I seemed to see Ava. She was hugging William, and she took the initiative to stand on tiptoe and kiss William. They kissed on the street as if there was no one else around, and then William took her to the nearest hotel. Henry noticed that I stopped walking, leaned over, and asked me, "What are you looking at?" I shook my head, "It's nothing." When I got home, I sat on the sofa. The night wind had already blown away most of the effects of the alcohol. I picked up my phone and sent a message. Some things still need to be prevented in advance. There was only one sentence in the message: Rose Hotel. Check on William and Ava. Early the next morning, William brought Ava back. As soon as they entered the door, they saw me sitting at the dining table having breakfast. William and Ava came over and sat down directly. Ava opened her mouth and was about to order me around. "I want to have breakfast too. Bring me a bowl." I didn't move and continued to eat slowly. When Ava saw that I didn't respond, she stood up directly, put her hands on her hips, and said, "Did you hear me?" I didn't say anything. Ava was so angry that she waved her hand and knocked the breakfast on the table to the ground. "If you don't talk, you don't get to eat either." I still didn't say anything. I lifted my legs and walked towards the door. Ava ran over and blocked my way. "What are you doing? You're getting too cocky. Quickly transfer 1 million yuan to William's company, and I'll forgive you this time." Ava held her head up and looked at me as if she were bestowing a favor. I shook my head. "Why should I transfer the money?" But now that you mention it, I suddenly remembered something. As I spoke, I picked up my phone and dialed a number. "Secretary Lucas, check if there are any business dealings between our company and Ava Group, and cut them off for me." When Secretary Lucas received the call, he was confused. Out of his professional sense as a secretary, he didn't ask and just replied, "Got it." Ava's face turned very ugly. "James, what do you mean?" William also caught up. "James, are you still angry about yesterday? A man should be magnanimous. Yesterday, Ava was just celebrating my birthday with me. Besides, it's you who can't keep Ava. Shouldn't you reflect on yourself?" "Yeah," I nodded. I really needed to reflect on myself. I've reflected, and this is the decision I made after reflection. After saying that, I lifted my legs and walked out. Ava stood there angrily scolding me, and William kept comforting her. When I arrived at the company, Secretary Lucas immediately greeted me. "President, do you really want to cut off all business dealings with Ava Group?" I nodded. "Yes, cut them off." Secretary Lucas said cautiously, "But madam..." Before Secretary Lucas could finish speaking, I interrupted him directly. "There will be no madam from now on. I will get a divorce from her." When Secretary Lucas heard me say this, he stared at me in disbelief. In my previous life, I had always been secretly transferring benefits to Ava Group, and Secretary Lucas had always known about it. After Ava Group was established, it had actually been using my money all the time. When we got married, one of the conditions Ava put forward was that I should spend 10 million yuan to help her and William start a company, and I did. But William was not really capable of running a company. The company was poorly managed under his leadership and was on the verge of going bankrupt. I offered to help. Ava said no, that William definitely had the ability to bring the company back to life. She trusted William more than she trusted me. Even when the reality was right in front of her, she still didn't believe it. During that period, I saw her going out early and coming back late every day, helping William with business. Many times she was so drunk that she was sent back. I really felt sorry for her. I begged her to let me help Ava Group, and she reluctantly agreed. She also said, "This is what I want to give." She has never forced me. That's right, she has never forced me. So, now, I don't want to force her to accept my help either. Just after I cut off the business with Ava Group, Ava called me. "James, what's going on? Just now, so many people called and said they don't want to cooperate anymore. What have you done? You'd better fix this, or are you waiting for a divorce?" I held the phone and sneered at Ava's words. Sure enough, Ava still only knows how to threaten me with a divorce. "Oh, I thought I made it very clear to you yesterday that I want a divorce from you. And didn't I say this morning that I would cut off all business with Ava Group? You heard that too. Since we're already preparing for a divorce, I can't force you to accept my help, right? Ava didn't know how to respond for a moment. After coming to her senses, she started to act unreasonably. I don't care. Don't use this kind of play hard to get tactic on me. It won't work. I'm telling you, transfer 1 million yuan within half an hour, and I'll forgive your childish behavior this time. I didn't even want to listen to Ava anymore and directly hung up the phone. Secretary Lucas stood aside and watched me hang up the phone with his mouth wide open. Boss, you're not serious this time, are you? Secretary Lucas knew very well how Ava had always manipulated James. But the onlooker sees most clearly, while the player is often blind to what is happening. I'm tough in business, but I just happened to fall into Ava's hands. I was so infatuated with her before, but now I've finally seen the light. I looked at the change in Secretary Lucas's expression and naturally understood what he was thinking. I looked at Secretary Lucas seriously. Just go ahead and do it. Just handle things according to the rules from now on. Secretary Lucas nodded and left. I sat in the office and looked at the photos that were investigated yesterday. The pictures were really shocking. During this time, Ava called me several times. This was the first time that I truly felt Ava's concern through her calls. Unfortunately, I don't want this kind of concern anymore. Perhaps because I didn't answer the phone, text messages started coming in one after another. I didn't even open them. I just let the phone vibrate beside me. This time, I won't be soft-hearted anymore. In the past, when I sent messages or called, Ava just pretended not to see or hear them, unless it was something beneficial to her. I still remember once when there was a problem in my company, and I worked around the clock for several days. I didn't even close my eyes. Finally, I couldn't hold on and fainted. After Secretary Lucas sent me to the hospital, he called Ava many times. The doctor also contacted Ava several times, but she didn't answer. At that time, I actually thought about getting a divorce. I really felt tired. But when she came to my hospital bed with fruits and William, she sat beside me and peeled an apple for me. At that moment, I was immediately soothed. Now, when I think about it, Ava didn't come to see me at all. She came to ask for money when she knew that my company had finally overcome the crisis. Before that, I was easily coaxed, and I directly transferred 2 million yuan to Ava Group. At that time, I never judged her by money. Now I realize that every time she was good to me, it was actually for my money. How pathetic. Perhaps because she couldn't get in touch with me and Secretary Lucas couldn't stop them. Ava and William directly rushed into my office. Ava walked over angrily and slapped me in the face. Why didn't you answer the phone? I thought something had happened to you. Do you know I'd be worried if you go missing like this? Ava accused me while crying. If I had heard these words before, would have been very happy, but now I didn't feel any joy in my heart. I touched the face that was hurt by Ava's slap and smiled. Worried about me, but the first thing you do is slap me. I really didn't know there was such a special way of showing concern. Ava was stunned by my retort and didn't react for a moment. William quickly stepped forward. James, you're being unreasonable. Ava cares about you. So what if she used the wrong way out of anxiety? When I heard this, I couldn't help laughing. I directly slapped William in the face. William looked at me in disbelief and covered his face. I spread my hands and looked at William. Did you feel my concern? If you didn't, I can help you feel it again. When William heard this, he took a step back as if he was afraid that I would really hit him again. Ava quickly pulled William and stood in front of him. James, if you have anything against me, come at me. Why hit William? Ava said as she gently touched William's face with her hand. I felt disgusted for the first time. I was also slapped by her just now, but in her eyes, she completely ignored it. Yet she cherished William so much. Sure enough, no matter what I do, I can never compare to William in her heart. This is probably the difference between love and no love. I looked at them and suddenly laughed out loud. I do have something. Getting a divorce from you is the most important thing I want to do now. When William heard this, he sensed something was wrong and quickly stepped forward to mediate. It's okay. I'm fine. Don't quarrel because of me. It's not a big deal. You're always talking about getting a divorce. Ava was deeply touched by William's magnanimity and that he was always thinking of her. But in my heart, I sneered. William is a typical male, green tea person. He's really something. Does he even deserve to be the reason for our quarrel? Seeing William like this, Ava became even more disgusted with me. Don't talk to him anymore. I think he's out of his mind today and is acting crazy. Ava said angrily. I looked at them mockingly. You're wrong. I used to be the one who was out of my mind, but now I'm cured, and I can see things more clearly. Why should I give the money I earned in my own company to Ava Group? If I donate 1 million yuan to charity, I can at least get a good reputation. What can I get by giving it to Ava Group? Is it your slap? Ava's face became uglier and uglier. She didn't expect me to say such things. Just then, Ava's phone rang. Miss Ava, the fee for your younger brother wasn't paid yesterday. When will you make up for it? Ava immediately replied, right away. I'll pay it soon. After saying that, she hung up the phone. Ava held the phone tightly and looked at me angrily. You didn't pay the nursing fee for my younger brother? When I heard this, I remembered. I used to love Ava's younger brother because of my love for her and always took good care of him. Plus, I never forgot the conditions I promised Ava. But this time, since I was reborn, I did forget about it. However, even if I hadn't forgotten, in this life, I won't continue to be a fool who's taken advantage of. I said, aren't we going to get a divorce? Then why should I continue to pay this fee? Moreover, over the years, haven't you taken a lot of money from me? Don't you have enough money to pay this fee for your younger brother? Do you have to rely on me, an outsider? Ava frowned. What do you mean, an outsider? You're his brother-in-law. I sneered. I won't be soon. I continued, besides, don't you have William? Over the years, hasn't the money his company earned from me been enough to pay this fee for your younger brother? When William heard this, his face darkened. Ava quickly jumped out to defend William. Why do you always drag William into everything? What obligation does he have to pay this money? I sneered. My so-called relationship with her is far inferior to that between her and William. After the divorce, you can establish a relationship with him, and then he'll have the obligation. Ava was so angry that she ignored me and turned around to pull William away. I'm the only one who can say we're getting a divorce. If you say it, I won't divorce you. I felt that at this moment, I finally saw Ava clearly. It turned out that it wasn't me who was afraid of getting a divorce, but her. When I got home that day, I saw that all my things had been thrown out. I knew it was Ava who did it. She had done this before. But in the past, I thought her willfulness was cute. I even thought that she was being willful because she wanted me to coax her. Now, when I think about it, I was really stupid before. I even made excuses for Ava. Isn't this a typical case of being sold and still helping to count the money? This time, I didn't indulge her. I called the police directly. This house was bought before marriage, and Ava has no right to do this. After the police arrived, I directly stated, this house is mine. Now I can't get in, and all my things have been thrown out. Ava didn't expect that I would call the police. She kept scolding when the police rang the doorbell. Beg me. If you beg me, I'll let you in. Obviously, she thought it was me outside. The police looked at me, and I spread my hands. We're getting a divorce soon. Hearing me say this, the police directly shouted towards the inside, Miss Ava, we are the police. Your current behavior is illegal. Open the door quickly, or we'll break it down. Ava had been comfortably eating fruits inside, waiting for me to apologize. When she heard the voice of the police, she was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect that I would go to such extremes. She quickly ran over and opened the door. As soon as she opened the door, Ava immediately put on a smiling face. Officer, this is just a little quarrel between husband and wife. It's not illegal. The police looked at me. It depends on this gentleman's opinion. Ava immediately gave me a glare. I looked at her and said, pick up all the things that were thrown out and put them back in their original places, and I won't pursue this matter. When Ava heard this, she looked at me angrily at once. How dare you ask me to do something? I looked at the police innocently and said, she's threatening me. Officer, why don't you just handle this according to the law? As soon as the police heard this, they immediately stepped forward. Seeing the situation, Ava sensibly went to pick up the things. I also troubled the police to supervise this. After saying that, I ignored Ava and walked in. Looking at Ava's figure going in and out, I picked up the basin of fruits that Ava hadn't finished eating. They were really sweet. I'm afraid Ava regrets throwing out so many things. It was more than an hour later that Ava finally put all the things back in their original places. I said thank you to the police and closed the door. Ava was completely exhausted. Are you satisfied now? I looked at her sitting on the ground, tired out, and then at the things that had been put back in place. It seems that I didn't do anything. You were the one who threw the things out. Isn't it also your obligation to pick them up? Ava looked at me speechlessly. What's wrong with you recently? There should be a limit to being jealous of William. I have nothing with him. If you don't want to give money to Ava Group, then don't give it. Ava's tone obviously softened a bit. I ignored her and went upstairs. As far as I can remember, this is the first time she has shown weakness, but unfortunately, I don't want it now. The next day, William came to find me early in the morning instead of Ava. James, aren't you afraid that Ava will really divorce you if you keep making such a fuss like this? I know you love Ava. You're just jealous of me being with her. Don't worry, I can stop seeing Ava from now on. Don't take your anger out on her. William earnestly and persuasively admonished me. But I laughed. William really used the strategy of retreating in order to advance well. Before I could say anything, Ava had already run downstairs. She hugged William movedly, with a naive and firm look in her eyes. Don't beg him. If we get a divorce, then so be it. Don't beg him because of me. It's just money. I have it. Ava looked at me hatefully. After saying that, Ava took out her phone and transferred 1 million yuan to William. After the transfer, she even waved the phone in front of me. I just felt it was ironic. All this money was what I had begged her to accept when I was trying to coax her when she had a little temper before. Now she is using it to support William. I just don't know how long this money will last for her to support him. Ava took William's hand and left. I watched them go and didn't stop them. When I got to the company, I directly instructed the lawyer to draw up a divorce contract and send it to Ava Group. When Ava saw the divorce contract, she was furious. She sat on William's lap and kept complaining. He really dares to divorce me. I'm so angry. However, Ava's mind was obviously not on this. She took the contract and kept staring at the part about property division. Ava, you must not get divorced in vain. We must get back what belongs to you. When Ava heard this, she looked at William movedly. At this time, William was still thinking of her wholeheartedly. Don't be in a hurry to sign. James is suddenly in such a hurry to get a divorce. There might be something fishy going on. Let's follow him and see, William said. Ava nodded, feeling that it made sense. After all, I would never have treated her like this before. In the following days, William and Ava both secretly followed me in their cars. Finally, one day they found me with a rather pretty girl, and our behavior was quite intimate. Ava said hatefully, "No wonder James wants to divorce me. It turns out that he really has someone else outside." William quickly took out his phone and started taking photos of me. He smiled triumphantly. The photos are all taken. This time, we must make James pay the price. He actually dares to betray you. Fortunately, I have you. Otherwise, would definitely have signed it foolishly. Ava hugged William movedly. The next day, William brought Ava to me. William smiled and said, "We don't agree to this divorce agreement. We demand that you leave the marriage with nothing." I looked at them mockingly. Leave the marriage with nothing? Are you sure? Ava stepped forward and was about to hit me. I didn't let Ava hit me as I did before. I grabbed the slapping hand. Don't you know what you've done? William, show him the photos you took. William took out the photos and smiled triumphantly. We have photos of you fooling around with other women. You can't deny it. As he said this, he threw the printed photos in front of me. I calmly picked up one photo and took a look. Before I could say anything, a woman ran out from the house. When Ava saw clearly who it was the woman in the photo. At once, her face was filled with anger. We're not divorced yet, and you can't wait to bring someone home. The woman came over and greeted Ava with a smile. Sister-in-law, don't you recognize me? Ava was confused. What was going on? Before she could react, the woman smiled and said, I'm James' cousin, Olivia. We were just having a meal. As she said this, she winked at Ava. When William heard this, he felt that something was wrong. I just smiled and watched this farce. Since Ava didn't care about me so much, how could she recognize my relatives? When Ava and I just got married, I took her to meet all my relatives. My relatives also attached great importance to her and had prepared gifts early. However, Ava didn't show them any good face. She left halfway through the meal before it was finished. I could only keep explaining to my relatives, saying that she wasn't feeling well. In fact, it wasn't that she wasn't feeling well. Because she didn't value me, she also looked down on my relatives. So naturally, she wouldn't remember my cousin Olivia. They deserved all this. William knew that he wouldn't get any benefits by staying, so he pulled Ava and wanted to leave. I spoke up and stopped them. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? I also have photos here. Do you want to take a look? As I said this, I walked into the house and took out an envelope. "Take a look for yourselves," I said and handed the envelope to Ava. The moment Ava opened it, the photos scattered on the ground. When William saw this, he quickly and nervously went to pick them up. The photos clearly showed Ava and William rolling around together. "I think we can talk about leaving the marriage with nothing now, and the one who should leave with nothing can be you." I looked up at Ava. Ava looked at me in shock, not expecting things to turn out like this. William was still picking up the photos on the ground. I sneered, "Don't pick them up. I have more." He slumped down on the ground. I looked at the two of them and sneered, "Of course, I'm not a heartless person. The house where your younger brother lives will be left to you. You two can be together well for the rest of your lives." This time, Ava and William didn't say anything more and left in a sorry state. Olivia waved at their departing backs. "Former sister-in-law, never see you again." It wasn't long before Ava Group had a funding gap. William hugged Ava. "Why don't we mortgage the villa?" When Ava heard this, she was a bit reluctant in her heart. After all, now the villa was all she had left. The money she got from me had already been used up long ago, and she had to start thinking about herself. Seeing Ava's reaction, William immediately said, "The company definitely has to keep operating. I'm still planning to marry you, so I have to work hard to make money." Ava, who was a bit reluctant in her heart at first, immediately hugged William happily upon hearing this. "Really? You want to marry me?" William nodded. "Let's go get the marriage certificate today." Under William's sweet words, Ava happily posted a status on her social media. The caption read, "After all these years, I can finally marry him." I also saw this status. I just smiled and didn't say anything. It's just right that these two scumbags are together, so they won't be able to harm others anymore. Unfortunately, their good days didn't last long. Without my help, William could only take Ava and start begging others for jobs. After all, the money from mortgaging the villa was far from enough for their extravagant spending. Over the years, I had already spoiled them. Now that there was no one to spoil them, the habits they had developed couldn't be changed overnight. They had long been used to living a life of luxury, especially William. For so many years, relying on Ava, he had never worried about money. Now it was the real test of their love. Later, I accidentally saw Ava and William who were out for business entertainment. At the dining table, Ava was drinking glass after glass of wine. In the middle of it, someone even touched her buttocks. I saw the change in Ava's expression. Ava looked at William with a pleading look in her eyes, but he turned a blind eye. He clearly felt disgusted, yet he still forced a smile. This was the life she wanted. I was the one who was stupid before, treating her like a precious treasure. I couldn't help but reflect on myself. After half of the drinking session, Ava was obviously drunk. When she completely collapsed on the table, William gave a look to the big boss present and even slipped a room card to him. The big boss helped Ava and went upstairs. I looked at all this and suddenly found it ridiculous. When we got married, I even promised Ava that I wouldn't touch her if it wasn't her own will. Now, does she know that she is being treated like a commodity and slept with by all kinds of men? Gradually, Ava noticed that William seemed to care less and less about her. She wasn't sure if it was just her illusion. One day, William said to her, "Ava, we don't have much money now. The company will probably have to be closed down." Ava looked at William in shock and said, "How could that be? Weren't there always contracts bringing in money?" William looked at her helplessly. "Those were just small contracts. The company has high expenses, and it's simply not enough. Why don't you go back to James and get back together with him? He liked you so much before. As long as you're willing to sleep with him, he will definitely agree." Ava looked at William in shock, unable to believe that these words came out of his mouth. She suddenly realized that things were not what she had thought. It turned out that Ava Group had never relied on William, but on me. She suddenly felt that the William in front of her was a bit strange. "I won't go to James. I can still live well without him." Ava was unwilling. She didn't believe that she couldn't live a good life without me. She still had a bit of pride left and was determined to prove it to me. However, William seemed to suddenly lose his patience. "If you don't go to James, we won't have enough money to hire a caregiver. Don't you feel sorry for your younger brother?" Ava clenched her fists. "I can go and earn money. I will definitely take good care of my younger brother." Seeing that Ava wouldn't listen to reason, William suddenly didn't want to say anything more and just left. Ava looked at William's back and thought of me. It was half a year later when I saw Ava again. William dragged Ava and waited in front of my house. Ava was very reluctant and wanted to leave, but was firmly held down by William. "I'm returning your woman to you. Take her away quickly," William said and threw Ava in front of me. Ava hurriedly lowered her head and bit her lips tightly. I looked at them with amusement. If I remember correctly, I have nothing to do with Ava anymore. William quickly stepped forward and said obsequiously, "Didn't you always want to sleep with her? 1,000,000 yuan. I'll sell this woman to you. You can do whatever you want with her in the future." When Ava heard this, she pulled her clothes tighter and trembled slightly. Seeing that I didn't speak, William quickly said, 50,000 yuan is okay too. I looked at him sarcastically, and he immediately said, 10,000 yuan is okay. It can't be any lower. I shook my head and looked at him with amusement. Why did he think that I would still want Ava now? William, in a fit of desperation, pulled Ava's hair and said, "Quickly beg him. Beg him to take you." Ava looked at me stubbornly and didn't say anything. I looked at them like this, ignored them, and turned around to close the door. It was really a good show, but unfortunately, I just felt it was extremely ironic. When William saw the door closed and was sure that I really had no intention of taking Ava anymore, the look in his eyes towards Ava became even more malicious. He kicked her. Ava was kicked down like this and let out a moan. "You're completely useless. You're so reluctant to let James sleep with you? You've already been slept with by so many men. Why are you still pretending to be a chaste woman?" Ava kept shaking her head. "I didn't. I'm not. It's all you. It's all your fault. You drugged me, that's why I had a relationship with them." William bent down and pinched Ava's face. "Oh, is that so? In the end, you enjoyed it too, didn't you?" Ava was hit where it hurt and suddenly became fierce, charging towards William. William wasn't prepared for a moment and was knocked to the ground. He stood up angrily and kicked Ava several more times, showing no mercy at all. "How dare you treat me like this? Good, very good. You can just walk home by yourself." After saying that, he drove away alone. Ava couldn't believe that William had just left like that. She had no money on her and could only walk back home. The journey was long, and her feet hurt from walking, but it was far less painful than her heartache. Ava couldn't believe that William was actually such a person. This was the man she had loved for decades, yet he could treat her like this. She had never expected it. When William got home, he took his anger out on Ava's younger brother. "You two siblings only know how to eat and use my things. Your sister is so useless. You don't need to stay at home either. Get out of here now." After saying that, he kicked Ava's younger brother out of the house. After years of treatment, Ava's younger brother's mental state was still not sound, and he could barely walk. He limped outside. He was going to find Ava. Finally, he saw Ava's figure at the intersection. He called out, "Sister," and happily ran towards Ava. A truck crashed into him head-on. Ava witnessed her younger brother's death right in front of her eyes. She ran over, held her younger brother in her arms, and cried bitterly. Ava's younger brother mumbled, "Sister," came out to find sister. "Brother William is angry." Before he could finish, he gasped his last breath and never woke up again. Ava held her younger brother, and tears kept falling. She understood that it was William who had driven her younger brother out. She hated him so much. How could things have turned out like this? When Ava, holding her younger brother who was covered in blood, appeared in the villa, William didn't even raise his head. "You're home. Go and cook. You're completely useless." Ava didn't say anything. She put down her younger brother and went to the kitchen. When she came out again, Ava was holding a knife in her hand. She walked up to William and stabbed him randomly. When William realized it, it was already too late. He stared at Ava with wide eyes. Ava dragged him in front of her younger brother. "You killed my younger brother. Pay with your life. Pay with your life." William cried and begged for mercy. "I was wrong. I was wrong. Don't kill me." However, Ava seemed to be deaf to everything. She didn't stop until she could no longer hear William's voice. She sat in the pool of blood, laughing loudly, with big tears falling from the corners of her eyes. Ava was sent to prison. I went to the detention center and saw Ava wearing handcuffs. She looked completely dejected, as if she had aged many years. Ava didn't expect to see me. She looked at me and said, "I lost." Her tone was extremely calm, no longer as bossy as before. I looked at her, said nothing, and left. When I walked out of the detention center and looked at the blue sky, I smiled. Playing my cards carefully step by step, I finally won. What Ava didn't know was that I knew that she and William were following me, so I deliberately found Olivia to stage a play. When we got divorced, I deliberately left her a villa. Otherwise, how could a profit-driven person like William have continued to stay with her? I sent people to deliberately besiege Ava Group, accelerating its bankruptcy. I watched as William continued to make money by using her remaining looks and body. However, I didn't expect that Ava's younger brother would die. But I don't regret it. In this second chance at life, only when they completely fell into the abyss did I finally see the light. At first, when I went to see her, I wanted to ask, did she ever love me? However, the moment I saw her, I realized that none of it mattered. Because I had already let go of her a long time ago.